Molokai pule o, Molokai aina momona. Aloha nui. O mahina poi poi paishan keia. Thank you for allowing us to gather with all of you this beautiful evening in the midst of Kapuaiwa. Love being on Molokai. Mahalo nui. Thank you to Cousin Kilia. And to Ohana for feeding us and for hosting us and helping us to set up all the logistics. And I'd like to call on Kilia and Haumana to start our meeting, to open our meeting. Mahalo.
Aloha nui kako, o Kilia Purdy Avelino no ho'olehua Molokai mai au. Mahalo nui I ke komike no ka hele ana mai I keia ahiahi, I ko Molokai, I mua o ka lehulehu o Molokai. Mahalo I ko Molokai lehulehu. 'Cause I know every single one of our Molokai people that are sitting in the audience today was already pa'ahana in so many halavai today, so really appreciate everybody being able to make it. Eia ka umau po'e haumana no ka oha, kanu o ka aina ka oha, a nā lako no e wehe me ke oli aloha. Mahalo.
Mahalo ia o koe na haumana e ku haaheo ana ma mua mākou. Mahalo ka ho'omau ana I ka ho'ilina no Molokai. Mahalo, mahalo. I hear that you folks are just jubilant with all of the activities, the ka'ahele, lono coming around. And so let's continue in your folks' sense of enlightenment and empowerment. And thank you again. My name is Mahina, and I am very honored and humbled to be able to help support the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority as a part of the Kuawakea team. So this evening, we're just going to quickly go through a little bit of who us, so that you know who we are and our purpose here. And then our authority members are going to go over background information. We're not trying to eat up all your time because we're trying to maximize time for you to give the authority input to help shape the priorities of the authority and also to provide specific input into 3 different areas. So we're going to quickly go through the front part so that you have information to have a meaningful, robust conversation. And moving on to the next slide, I'm just going to quickly, those who are here from Kuawakea team, we have a whole number of Kanaka organizations that are represented. Just wave, aloha, hi, aloha. So we have SFM, International, Detail, Edith Kanakole Foundation, Mahina Consulting, and these many organizations, companies that are based here in Hawaii. We've come together because we love Mauna Kea and we want to support community to help inform and drive this process. In the next slide, I'm going to go over the authority members and the staff. So here present this evening, we have Chair Komeiji of the authority. Aloha. We have Dr. Noinoi Wang Wilson on Zoom. She's in Hilo. She sends her love. She really was looking forward to coming tonight and on Maui last night. However, she had a last-minute ohana kuleana that she had to tend to, and she sends her love. But you'll be hearing from her shortly over Zoom. We also have Mr. Neil Hannes. Aloha. Mahalo. And here you can see, take a look, there's many board authority members, and this is a uniquely comprised authority. You'll hear more about the way that this authority was comprised. There's a lot of intentionality behind that. For example, you have a lineal descendant that is represented, you have educators, and you have folks from various institutions. Going to the next slide, I want to recognize those who serve as leadership of the authority: John DeFries, Bill Stormont, and two others who weren't able to join us this evening, Lloyd Unebasami, as well as Pua'ena on Aloha. And now I'd like to ask Chair Komeiji just to say why the authority wanted to come to here to Molokai and across the Pai'aina.
Aloha. I'm John Komeiji, the chair, and I wanted to just first of all, thank you for all coming. This is really important for us we have, in the last 2 weeks, we're going to have 10 community meetings across all of the islands. But we are intentionally seeking all of your input. And the reason that this meeting, I think, is going to be a little bit different from the meetings that you usually attend is that we want to spend a great deal of time breaking us down into small groups and then soliciting your opinions about certain questions that are going to be presented to you. So please, what we're trying to do is to get your opinions, try to create a space where people can share and where we can listen, but also importantly, where you can listen to each other. So again, please share your true opinions, because without those, we as a group cannot move forward. So again, thank you for taking the time to come out tonight.
And now we're going to transition. We were asking Dr. Noinoi Wang Wilson, I like to call her Auntie Doctor, and she's joining us by Zoom, and she will be sharing more background information for how this transition of this new authority came about. Aloha, Auntie.
And go. Are you Mehana and Maya go?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry for the delay.
I'm trying to watch the YouTube at the same time, so there must be a little delay. Aloha, everybody. Noinoi Wang Wilson, Koinoa. Aloha, I'm here in Hilo on the slopes of Mauna Kea, and I really wish I was there with all of you. But since I'm not, I just wanted to make sure, and with our new technology, that I have this opportunity to pop in on your meeting while I'll be watching it on YouTube to personal welcome. All of my on Mauna Kea with me in 2020, and remind you that Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority came about because of you, because of us. Thousands and thousands of us came together from across the Pai'aina and from Aina A, across the continent and foreign nations, to support our movement to protect Mauna Kea. That's where it came from. And because of our stand on the Mauna starting in 2014 with Lanakila and his actions, in 2015 with our opio up on the slopes at the visitor center, and then in 2019, when many of us from Molokai and here in Hilo and across the Pai'aina actually allowed ourselves to be because of this, because we felt so strongly about our need to make sure that our Mauna is being protected in a way that is good for the Mauna. And so the Mauna Kea Working Group was established in 2021, And out of that Mauna Kea working group, of which many of the members are people you are familiar with as well, Lanakila was one of them. I was there. Tipua Kanahele, Bonnie Irwin, who is one of our authority board members, who is the chancellor of the University of Hawaii at Hilo, and Rich Masuda from Keck Observatory. We were all on that working group, and we found a space where we could actually work together across, not just between astronomy and the community, but across all fields of interest and other areas of science that we wanted to make sure we would do properly on Mauna Kea, if at all. So the result of the working group was a report that ended up with the Mauna Kea Authority being established by Act 255 in 2022. And the board or authority members that were introduced to you just now are the ones, 7 or 8 of us representing community, 8 Native Hawaiians, which doesn't mean we all think alike, but it means that Hawaiians have a large voice on the authority and a large voice along with you in shaping what the authority is going to be responsible for and how we're going to make sure that our most sacred, one of our most sacred vahipana in Hawaii is taken care of in a way that we want it to be taken care of. So I leave the rest of the presentation to my fellow authority members who are there with you in the room. Know that we are guided by the framework that was established for us by Antipua, even in the working group. And particularly in the law, in Act 255, it allows for us, the authority, to follow our operational values and principles, which you'll see shortly, which are Mauna Aloha, Opu Kupuna, and Holomua Oi Kela Kela. The way we conduct ourselves and the way we frame everything that we do on behalf of our Mauna and sacred space, the Vahipana at the summit area. So you'll be introduced tonight to more Mukanavai, a little presentation by Antipua. And I really urge you to just share your deepest na'au, your mana'o, about Mauna Kea, about the ways that we should properly malama our very important Vahipana, and help us develop the management plan that we think is the best management plan we can possibly come up with in order to make sure that the Mauna is there for generations. So with that, aloha, aloha, aloha nui, and I hope to see you again very soon, if not on Molokai, somewhere along the way as we take this presentation around our pai aina. Aloha mahalo.
Mahalo noi noi. Well, we wanted to optimize the time on her beautiful face, so we didn't show the slides, but you might run through the slides just so you see some of the concepts that she was talking about. Let's go to the working group. So that she was talking about this working group that was established in 2021, and here was some of their central principles that Native Hawaiians have an inseparable environmental kinship with Aina, and that no more than a place like Mauna Kea or Paramount, and that gave purpose to our that led to the act that created us. Next slide. And she talked about guiding values, Mauna Aloha, Opu Kupuna, Holomua Kela Kela. And I think we can get those to you if you need more time to absorb those values. And that led to the creation of the Act 255, and where we were given a 5-year period of time to stand up a brand new state agency and some resources to do it. Okay, we caught up with her slides. Let's get to my part. Aloha mai kako. It's really a pleasure to come back to Molokai. I've been coming here 52 years, wearing different kind of hats. Sometimes getting my ass kicked, sometimes having really good news to share and healing meetings and so forth, but always you give a rip, I won't use the other words I want to use, and you show up and this persistence, this resilience is just inspiring to me. So it's always good. When people got arrested, like Hanoi, like Walter, like Ventipua, you keep doing the things, you're going to end up getting people arrested, chained to grates, protests worldwide, contested case hearings, litigation that suck up time and resources that we don't have, and we don't want to expend, and so forth. We will, if we have to, and so forth, but we don't want to. So the idea was let's change this paradigm, and that word got to and through the legislature in Act 255. Now this ain't the Native Hawaiian Kingdom that was established here. Let's be clear. I'm sure there's a meeting on Molokai tonight about that. This isn't the one. Our state government feeling like it needs to do better. And there's a couple things that they gave us in the act. It got passed by, let's say signed by the governor, that said, you know what? The Mauna is not just a parcel. It's a stakeholder in this. And it needs to be treated as the first stakeholder that you consider. And what our job is to figure out what that means. How do you put the Mauna first? How do you understand what it needs to do and be, to itself, to our larger environment, to which we're kin, and to us, so that it can serve its function. And the humankind activity then needs to be complementary and synergies. And there needs to be some synergy there so that we're welcome there. We're adding to that environment. So that's kind of the broad, so we get from the legislature and they say, here, there's going to be a whole new kind of body to govern this. It ain't not going to be not a BLNR or even a C-worm kind of thing. There's going to be more people, and you've got to have lineal descendants, you've got to have cultural descendants. Those people that Noi talked about is really a kind of more broadly representative body, an educator in the group and so forth. And we're really blessed with the group that we have with Kalehua and Lanakila, Pomai and so forth on this body, along with Paul Horner and Komeji. As a businessman representing it, I mean, he's been giving us amazing guidance, to help us understand the legislative process and the business community expectations and so forth and how to deal with this. And we understood early on, I said, hey, if we can't come together, it's kind of hard to think that we'd bring stakeholders across the Pai'aina together. But we did. And it wasn't that hard for us to come together. So we come here really hopeful, and we go around the Pai'aina really hopeful that if we just kind of start talking to each other, if we kind of break some of the silos, for us all to contribute to vision and so forth, and then we do, got to happen. Penny, got to see the island, right? You got to have that island out there. You got to know where the heck you're going. Before you start regulating and paddling and sailing, you got to know that. And so part of this, and where we're at right now, is to understand what those aspirations are, what that island is, and how we write that as an aspirational statement, as a goal, as a future state that we want to be, as immediate things that we want to happen. And then we got to, I think we jumped ahead a little bit, then you got to take and to inform that vision, you got to talk to people, not just a couple people, not just the University of Hawaii, not just Kiai, but open this discussion up really broadly. And so we're going around the Pai'aina several times to really have this discussion happen, raising issues. And then you got to be consistent as you develop this plan to regulate the behavior. Then you got to enforce, and you got to have some teeth, and you got to be able to put together a plan to regulate this behavior. I'll come back to you, Walter, in just a second. Yeah, let me just get to this part. So that's the mandate that we have. That's where we are. I want to emphasize that we respect that this is not the start of a conversation. There's been conversation about Mauna Kea for years, and we would dishonor all that input and what we've been told in the past if we ignored it. We need to build upon the conversation that kind of culminated in the working group report, culminated in Act 255, and now add to it. So you're adding to it tonight, and there'll be other chances to add to it in the future. And as we then implement this, we then really start to achieve our vision. So is going to be reflected in one form is an aspirational statement. It's written into the law. We have to create this aspirational statement. And it has to do certain things like, what are the issues of social injustice that really affect how we look to land, how we act upon land, how we manage and so forth. And let's talk about how we're going to resolve those issues and how our management practice can help resolve some of those issues. So we'll be talking about that, and then some of the regulatory things about access and so forth that's going to come from you that we're going to put into our report. And there's going to be disagreement and so forth, and our duty is not to try and make everybody happy, I suppose, but be clear about our logic and transparent about what we heard, and then transparent about the logic that we use to come up with the strategic framework and regulatory framework that we're going to hope to have adopted. So Mapopo, we kind of get the plan and where we are in this process, and just how valuable you are, and whether you're 1 or 100, we know that the mana'o we get from Molokai is going to be ready to break the system that failed and to create a new one. And so we're glad you're here to help us do that. Mahalo. Well, Walter, you had a question? Yeah. Right. This is, the question is, are we talking about a management plan for the area, and the area that is defined in statute, whether we like it or not, in 9,200 elevation where the Halepohaku is and above, accepting a priest already with DLNR and NARS and so forth. It's not the whole Mauna, it's that portion. And we're not talking about telescopes yet, although we can certainly talk about astronomy. We're not afraid to talk about that subject. But our belief is you got to have a plan first before you talk about any of the human behaviors that you saw on the other side. That unless you know what that vision is and strategic framework is, you cannot regulate astronomy, you cannot regulate educational activity, you cannot regulate commercial tours, recreational access, and so forth until you have your vision. So we're at that stage, and we're going to create a plan to do that. It's going to create regulations and rules that then people will need to administer to demonstrate that the framework and the vision means something, and we're trying to achieve it. And so there's going to be more chances to ask questions at the end of the program. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, go. Does that answer your question?
Also, I wanted to make sure that everybody saw this handout. So it has all of the information. So the project area, Uncle, is from Halepohaku up right now, is the project area. Halepohaku up. So there's going to be 3 topic areas that we're going to talk about in smaller groups. Going to be access and use. So you guys are going to give input to access and use. We're going to talk about kanawai that you're going to hear from Antipua, and the whole framework is going to be grounded in kanawai, natural laws from a Hawaiian perspective, and then also an aspirational statement that's trying to understand and address the social, the unresolved issues that's still
So that was the purpose. It was kind of a brief, because we wanted to hear from you. We wanted to shorten this time, but obviously we don't want you to be going blind and not knowing what this is all about. So the last thing I say is that if we're going to have a values-driven plan, and it might be good to start with our values and the kanawai that were created to kind of regulate behavior in accordance with those values. And so we've asked Antipua Kanahele, she was asked to do the video that we're showing at all of our presentations about kanawai. Who wrote the video?
It's a real honor to talk about kanawai, because it's not something we hear about all the time, but it's something that existed for a long time, and it's something that continues to because it has to do with this land that we live on and what we as Hawaiians anyway, should know about this land that we live on. That's what kanawais are all about. Kanawai is first and foremost, it's called a law, but it's like a code or a decree or a regulation. Any one of those will identify the idea of kanawai. And the first kanawai that we're going to talk about is a kanawai called Ho'okiki kanawai. Ho'okiki kanawai. Okay, and Ho'okiki kanawai is the law of continuum. And so this is about Kanakas trying to educate Kanakas about what's happening on their land and how they can make their land exist for many generations. So this kanawai has to do with the law of continuum. And Ho'okiki kanawai is, the idea of Ho'okiki is to let things flow. And if you look around you, what are the things that flows? And one of the things that flow on our land is water. And they focus on water a lot because water is one of our main sources of life, for life. And so the idea of Ho'okiki kanawai is the idea of allowing or being aware of where water flows. And the other thing that flows is magma. And the great thing about magma and lava, it comes up, whoosh, 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 and out of the ground, and then it flows down to the ocean. What it does, it gives us land. And we look at it sometimes as being destructive. It is not destructive. It does what it has to do in order for us to have land. And so what the Ho'okiki kanawai is stay out of its way. Okay, allow it to flow. And then the idea of water that flows, Mauna Kea, the aupua of Ka'ohe runs from Hamakua, and it's a small aupua, runs from Hamakua to the top of Mauna Kea and over to Mauna Loa. Ka'ohe is bamboo. And the idea of the bamboo and why it's called bamboo, it has to do with water. And between the two mountains catches the most water. And it catches the most water in these bowls. And then the water will leak out from it very slowly. And so we have all of these water basins between the two mountains. And that's why we have really big rivers in the Hamakua district, because of all the water that flows down freely. So the consciousness of what flows, where it flows, why we should be conscious of it flows, because it gives us life and because it gives us a place to live. And water is what we need for life. And a lot of the water has to do with the two mountains that we live on. Okay. That's the idea of the continuum. The other kanawai is kua'a kanawai. Kua'a is the burning back, the law of the burning back. Now, the law of the burning back has to gestating of landscape, basically, gestating of landscape. They initially looked at it as, or compared it to an ali'i of very, very high rank. You don't approach the ali'i of very high rank because he is out of reach of everybody. It's the same thing with these land areas, the landscape that we need to hold sacred, or we need to hold like they're going to do a lot of good for us, because these are the land areas that are necessary for our existence. One is, of course, the volcano, and is one of it. The other is places that have marshes and streams and rivers and coral heads and the idea of the wet forest, because all of these things help to reproduce what's in there on the land. Coral head, lets things out into the ocean, and a lot of fish go for it. Okay. And the wet forest is what gives life to more forests. And the streams do the same thing. And so this is the idea of the law of the burning back. So you look for these places and you be sure that you allow these places to maintain itself as it is. The other kanawai is Kaiokia Kaunakakai. Kaiokia Kanawai is the law of natural boundaries. Now, this is a law that we as Kanakas need to be aware of. Okay. The law of natural bodies is the law where all of these things that I just talked about, the volcano, the movement of water, and all of that, where they are moving. And what it's saying is that you have to recognize the boundary. So this is saying, know the boundaries. Boundary is a kanaka, and the boundaries of the land. So Kanawai is all about the environment, all about the land, and what the land is doing, and where the land is, and how the land provides for us. And therefore, our idea of being conscious of it and staying away from places that is not good for us. Okay, the last kanawai is Kiho'ihoi kanawai. And Kiho'ihoi kanawai is the law of regeneration. And so the law of regeneration is that it's like the first law is the law of continuum. We need to continue our own generation of Kanakas. And we need to see that the generation of the native trees continue. We need to see that the generation of the native continue, or the generations of the insects that live in these areas continue because they're the food for the birds. And so we have to be conscious of all of that as natives of the island. And again, these are the 4 laws of the land. And the law of regeneration is that we go out and there is a sense of reciprocation. And the sense of reciprocation is, if you go back to the Kumulipo in the first 2 lines, I was going to say this with the first kanawai, but I didn't. But with this particular line, the first 2 lines of the Kumulipo, Okeawi kahuli vela kahonua. And when you talk about that, people say, oh, that's when our earth is hot. No, it's talking about the lava. When the lava is hot, it makes our earth hot. Okeawi kahuli lole kalani. And what that does when our earth gets hot like that, and a lot of steam is coming up, it clouds the sky. Okeao I kukayaka kala, it hides the sun. So what it's doing is it's returning water to the space above and turning it into clouds. And eventually what that does is that cloud system will return the water back to us. So there's the whole idea of kiho'ihoi kanabai is the idea of reciprocation, that we give and the land gives back. And so be conscious of the fact that the land does give back.
Promise, we want to carve out most of the time for you to have discussion, to provide your input, and if questions come up, Maikai, we will raise those. You can raise those questions at the end. We're hoping that you'll stay till the end, 7:30ish. There's going to be Q&A, so the authority members will be here, and then we can ask questions of them. So if you have a blue dot on your name tag, you're with me. And I'm gonna ask you to bring your chairs, and we're gonna have a conversation right here. If you have a red dot, you're with Mehano Kala. Mehano Kala on that side, okay? So you're gonna please just bring your chairs, and then we're gonna have a conversation for about 50 minutes over three topics. Three topics: access and use, aspirational statement, and kanawai. And perhaps there might be other topics you want to discuss. Okay? So if you have a red dot on your name tag, please take your chair, go next to Mehana Kala, blue dot, come right over here. Mahalo. Go red. I think got us even them out a little bit. That's okay. The numbers. Sorry, Tita. Kalamay. You. And then also, if you could respond to this question. So we all have the same card. What is your relationship with Mauna Kea? So that's all you're going to do. We're not going to do it in a circle. You're just going to turn to someone and say your name, your aina, and respond to this question. Yep, and Miki Allah come. Kilia, you want to join our group? So you can participate, yeah? Yeah, come participate. And what, Justin, he going to join that group? Tell him go with Hano. You like go with Hano. Okay, Maikai. Oh, what is that? And those that are joining us on YouTube, again, the question is, what is your relationship with Mauna Kea? We would love for you to also respond over the YouTube link. What is your relationship with Mauna Kea? Community members, I have this mic and I'm going to apologize to you. However, we want to make sure that the folks that are joining us on YouTube can also hear what we're saying. So that's all this is. So we don't hear it in the house, but we're just speaking into the mic so that folks online can hear. And so our group, yay, we get to be videoed, okay? So my first question, we're going to have 3 sets of questions. 4 questions around 3 topical areas that the authority is seeking your direct. There are going to be more topics that are going to come up, and perhaps in this conversation, you're going to say, well, I want to talk about X, or I want to talk about this thing. We'll track that, okay? But tonight, we're looking to have your mana'o around access and use, around an aspirational statement, and indigenous place informed framework intelligence. So the access and use part is what's your input to help create regulations around anyone that is accessing and utilizing Mauna Kea. There's a whole number of uses currently. Yeah, it's in your education handout. There's like education use, there's research use, astronomical use, cultural use, all kind of different uses. For tonight, we're asking more around recreational use. Okay, we're also looking for guidance around information to how will any of the public or contractors, anyone on the Mauna, how should they conduct themselves? So that's access to use. We have a question around aspirational statement. That is, what are the big issues that have not been addressed over time? There are underlying issues. You know, there might be different underlying issues that maybe prevail, that still remain, that have not been addressed. Okay, an example might be, well, who gets to access, and who gets to decide who gets to access, right? That might be one of the questions that people have. The final topic is around how is Hawaii thinking going to structure the management, Hawaii values, and thinking going to guide the governance and the management of Mauna Kea. So which one do you guys want to address first? The social injustice one, the access and use one, okay, access and use. Is that okay? We want to start there? Let's go there. This is here we are. So what are some examples of social safety and conservation impacts of recreational use that should be monitored? So essentially, to make it more simple and plain language, how should recreational use be managed and monitored? Good question, Auntie. Well, I'll give a couple examples, but let's note that is a question. What is recreational use, right? There should be a definition of what is recreational use. But yes, ATV, folks go, you know, I have family members that go up for snow play sometimes, yeah. Snowboarding. Those are some of the examples. Okay. Yes, Auntie.
Did our people do any of those activities, traditional?
So we need to record that as a question. What are the traditional recreational uses? And you can write it big, all right here, yeah. As a bullet point, what are the traditional recreational activities for on Mauna Kea? Yeah, good question. And then the second question that she asked, make sure that we notate it, and Tilerata asked, how do we define recreational use? Okay. What are the traditional yeah, that's my, no worries. No one's judging. No worries. No one's judging. No one's judging. Mai kai. Those are good questions. What else? What are the recreational uses? Yep. Mai kai. Question mark.
negative impacts, we don't support recreational uses. I don't support recreational uses because just get too many negative impacts. Because your question is, what is the conservation impacts of recreational use that should be monitored? There shouldn't be any recreational use by definition of what we see thinking of modern day recreational use. That's another question. I just say modern day recreational because it's, yeah. Because that's vahipana. That's it's not. You're not supposed to do that.
Modern recreational use because it is a I appreciate that because you're stating why. Why you
Can I ask you what you think about hiking? It's a question that I personally have.
If I hike, hiking for spiritual purposes. I used to hike up and down the Kalapapa Trail, and it was for spiritual purposes. It wasn't for recreation. I'm not joining the triathlon, like how Big Island get triathlon so big now that they separate. That is recreation. That's all about me and I and what I can do, and it has nothing to do with the connection with Aina.
So what I'm hearing, Auntie Laurie, is that maybe appropriate recreational use might be something that will help to maintain the spiritual aspect of that particular Aina. Is that correct? Yourself, your connection, yourself, your kuleana to Aina. We have a recorder with the transcript. Okay.
I think what Auntie Laurie is alluding to is that similar looking activities with different intentions is the discerning factor. Like if you access, we can say no to access, but access for and hiking is a mode of transportation or an access. But if your hiking is to not use a vehicle, to walk as our kupuna did, to hike up to a space, to take our piko to Waiau, as all our kupuna did before, that's not recreation. Yeah, like the aho, the ceremony that into it is the discerning factor between for fun and not for fun.
What else? Mike Ka'i, this is great conversation already. Ceremony is important factor. What else? Okay. Thank you. We will take that. Thank you. So we'll say the question here violates all of the kanawai that were stated.
And I just add, which is exactly that, is that we have, when you look at where the boundaries are, the way we regulate our activity in the old days, what was kapu, restricted activities, we never have to even go through this kind of process. Everybody understood and behaved a certain way. And so now that we have way more Vaukanaka, because there are people everywhere, and there's so few places that are really kapu. And even the kapu places, you see any kind of people get access and hana ino, and so we got to work double hard and pule twice as hard to just pale those people, to actually have an area where you can go Lake Tahoe, go like go le'a like that. But if you like launa with poliahu, if you like launa with the tutus in that way, then you're gonna approach it already with a different attitude. And part of that access, and I know it's kind of beyond the recreational use part, but it's like we do think nowadays things stuck to us. I gotta say the ma'iana lepo is unreal. Whether it's biological, it's chemical, like there's so many things on us as humans today that we're introducing into such a pristine place that is really so a handful of elements. But the moment the sunscreen enters the scene, the moment the coke that we as humans bring into this lake, I cannot think of what would be worth the compromise, what would be worth it as a recreational use that says we're willing to risk ruining the pristineness of these spaces.
So what about, what about biosecurity? And if recreational uses were permitted, how do you ensure that the kapu is safeguarded? The kanawai and kapu are safeguarded.
Yeah. Kalamai, I just wanted to share on one of the times we were up at Mauna Kea was to place my niece's or grandniece's piko at Lake Waiau. I didn't walk it, they did. And Pu'uhonua did, her son, my daughter, our nephew, went to place his daughter's piko at Lake Waiau. When we went there that day, hundreds of cars were there. Many of them kanaka, digging into Poliahu to take snow home down to Hilo. And we see that. We have ohana and friends that do that, but that was the first time I've seen it and witnessed it. Like hundreds of cars were up there. And so when we had, I think Kai Kahele came one time over here years ago and talking about TNT, I think one of the first things were like, yes, that is a huge, obvious thing. But what's not that, almost out of sight, out of mind in a sense, is our own people who do that kinds of recreation, yeah? And we're not educating our own people. Our own people aren't educated to know, like, you digging right into Poliahu and you might be staying in the same breath. No, TNT, we need to educate our people too, and the harm that does, And it's fun. It's, they don't know. We don't know. We were brought up in a Western times, yeah, I think. So we got to do better at educating our own people too. Mahalo.
You brought up an interesting term, is a very powerful term, harm. Do you feel like harm needs to be described? Like, what does that look like so that people who is in charge of monitoring and safeguarding can understand the effect, defining harm?
On that road, it's no more space. You just keep going, and there's everybody. There were people sledding up at the top of the summit, because we did go up to the summit and had some people sledding. Yeah. Never have parking. It was that. I was like, wow, I never seen that before, and that is detrimental for a sacred place like that. Yeah.
Anyone want to answer? If not, we're going to move on to the next question. Anyone who has not yet spoken? Anyone? Opio? Any? No? Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Can always come back. Okay, here's a second question pertaining to access and use. Yeah, one more time. Thank you, Tita. Okay. And I forgot to background that's in the law. So Act 255 states that the authority may require an application of recreational uses, including fees, and create guidelines on potential limits by monitoring the social, safety, and conservation impacts of recreational use over time. So here's a question. How might the authority provide guidance to ensure the individuals have the information to conduct themselves in an appropriate and on Mauna Kea? Now this assumes that people will access, right? And if people are allowed to access, again, we're talking about from Halepohaku up to the summit. That's the area. What's the guidance to make sure that people are conducting themselves in a pono, an appropriate way?
Is this entry being done through like a permit system? So if I wanted to go
and put my grandbaby's piko, would I have to fill out some kind of a permit for cultural use and cultural access? I just want to know system which allows the authority to show the guidance that, hey, if you need to do this cultural activity, then these are the guidelines. This is what needs to be done. I do have a connection. I would like to practice my Hawaiian culture, but I need to know before I go up there, hey, don't be doing this, pick up all of that. I should know most of that already, but I think a permitting system that
Control access. Is that your recommendation? A permitting system to monitor and determine appropriate pono cultural access. Are there examples? Do you guys have examples of what works? Like a good permitting system in place that you folks know of?
Yeah, I'm on Kauai, so I'm just here. Working for this for almost a year. But we had a real problem on Kauai Beach. We lived there. We couldn't enjoy K Beach anymore. There was no parking. It was too crowded, and yeah. So we created this thing that it's not that expensive. I think tourists pay like $10, $5, but locals don't pay anything. But you go there any day now and you can enjoy. It's pretty empty, you know, and it solved the problem. Tourists have to pay fee, but they also have to, like 3 months in advance, they have to be on midnight when the permits get, you know, they have like seconds to get a permit, you know. Yeah, there's a limit to it. And there's a bus that takes them to from Princeville. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I know the guy that runs a Joe guy, but there was a lot of criticism in the beginning, a lot of like uncertainty how it was gonna work out, but it does work. Yeah.
Any agreement? Anybody support this, Mana'o? For sure. Yes. Okay. Other examples of what works? Permitting systems that work.
Papahana and Kaho'ola.
Can you break down some of the components of the cultural access? I mean, the components. You have to write an application.
Yes. There's a review process, and very multiple orientations depending on which Papahana Moku'akea is. And have criteria, and so those criteria, both of those processes have gone through iterations and iterations of what works, and recognizing that the authorities that regulate, they only get so much mana of what they can approve or not approve, and so you know, and sometimes like the people will say, well, the government is qualified to evaluate whether or not my cultural practice is approved or not, yeah, and like what those criteria are. So, and that might be a separate entity, commission, board, review panel beyond this stewardship entity.
Yeah, mahalo. And there's also very strict biosecurity controls. Any other mana'o? Not that strict. Okay, gotta be strict, more strict. No more enforcement. So is that a recommendation? Enforcement. What about enforcement?
There is none. You need enforcement for rules.
Need enforcement. Recommendation is if you don't create rules that there needs to be. Okay. Anything else? Enforcement, what else?
The permitting system is so complex, people are going to give up. And if they're really not dedicated in wanting to go. And then maybe the good people, the players and the real cultural practitioners, and I can think of a few like Clarence Kuching and Pua and them. It's almost like how the USDA gives you carte blanche to be one good steward, and I don't have to come and permit you, but you can send whatever you like to the mainland because I trust that you're going to clean your products like biosecurity. Maybe something like that. I don't know, but it's just best not to do none of that. Not to go there.
So Kea Beach was the end of the road, right? So we have the trail to Kalalau, or to Kaunakakai, the first beach. But we also did something recently on Koke, up in the mountains, and it's different. Kea Beach, they have a gate, and there's a person on the gate. So Koke wasn't a real problem, but they tackled it before it became. They put parking meters, and there's a person there that actually walks around, and I don't know how they figure out are rental cars or not. If you're from Kauai or from Hawaii and you have your driver's license, you don't pay. If you have a rental car, then you have to pay for it. So they talked about putting a gate there, but they never did.
Okay, what else? Other conversations. Okay, we were on Waianae and Ko'olau on Oahu the week prior. Permitting system has come up, enforcement has come up, orientation has come up for all, not just for cultural access, but also even for contractors, for astronomers, for educators that are going up, visiting researchers. So what should be a part of the orientation?
So, and Mikiela helped me with this at one point. When I had to bring in people to help me with a big project for natural resources, I brought in a culture person that explained to them about the area and even down to where you can shishi and where you cannot shishi. So that was, but I just thinking if you have rangers, so that brought me more to the bigger issue of like the problem we have with tourism in Hawaii right now. Tourism used to be controlled. We used to have big groups that came in, we took them on buses and we went only to specific areas. So it was controlled. We got into trouble with the free independent traveler. You come to Hawaii, you jump in your rental car and you just go wherever you like. You pull up in my backyard and you start walking. So that with this is how do you control the free independent traveler or tourist or anybody in Mauna Kea? How do you do that? I don't see that you can unless you move to a more really controlled system. And for me, I always go, it's easier to just not even do it. Like nobody get access, you know, so. I still am a proponent of that. I don't like, because I feel it's Wahipana and nobody belong up there. So, but that is basically the problem.
Is yeah, I like that, FIT. The targeted issue to address is the FIT, Free Independent Traveler. Any other mana'o on this? If not, we're going to move to and see, anything else? No? Okay. Okay, now we're gonna move to Kanawai. Kanawai. Yeah. Okay, you can put that as a recommendation too. To simplify this, here's the question, but we can also say it more simply. After learning about Kanawai, the natural laws from Antipua, and examples of how they guide stewardship and ecosystem management, Aina management, what are some of the examples of places or times on Mauna Kea or elsewhere where Kanawai are at work? So, you know, one of the Kanawai was their boundaries, like no go to a place. There's a Kanawai around regeneration, yeah? So when a place, when I was sitting with some of the Lahaina folks, they're saying no, can go inside because the aina has to heal itself first. So we can simplify this question too. Like how do we make sure kanawai are used for management purposes? Any thoughts?
Just enforce it literally.
Enforce it literally. So could you give me an example of what that possibly might look like?
I took good notes when Auntie was talking. I took all the notes she talked on all the four, and basically it said that you just no go there. Pretty much, you know approach. That's what Auntie said. Kua'a kanawai of the burning bat, it was like a li'i. You don't approach them. It's the landscape, and you need to hold the areas for our existence. So maybe you guys got to go back to identifying those areas in order to know that it's a no entry zone.
So applying the kanawai, kanawai, no boundaries. What are some of the no access, no use areas? Yeah, so that was a recommendation. Mahalo, that's very specific. Love it. Thank you. Okay. What else? So the Stewardship Authority wants to know how do we that they are aspiring to utilize Ike Hawaii, Ike Kupuna, to guide and govern and manage, but they're asking for kokua. They're asking we don't know how to do all of that. So they're asking for mana'o from all of. Could be like examples of maybe like Molokai, you have your own rules, regulations. So how does it work for when it works well? How does it work well for you folks? And then maybe you can share some mana'o for the authority.
I don't know if this applies. I think one of the major components to succeed is buy-in, because you'll never have enough enforcement or regulation, or enforcement. And so you have to convince people why it's a good idea. So a recent example for us of it, sort of deploying a kanawai on Molokai is our reaction to regulate ourselves against CRB. Like we fighting CRB, we don't only, and that's with us. We cannot rely on the government to be the eyes and ears and try to enforce this. We gotta, as Makainana, we gotta be softly educating our neighbors, like, don't be bringing that, and sort of convincing them that this is a good idea for all of us, yeah, and what that shared benefit is. And so I think maybe what I'm just trying to highlight is that whatever comes of this, there needs to be, where it's not just a Hawaiian thing. This is not just pono for us culturally, but this is why it's pono for everybody. And that the individual pono versus collective pono is always loudest when people think of their entitlements to something, to a privilege, to when I think of recreation, it's like, well, I should have a right to go do X, Y, Z, and you're like, but the impact is collective. But if you're not part of that community that holds the residual effects of that activity, yeah, you come in, you do your thing, you out, but the rest of us is the one left mitigating and suffering through the impacts. How do we continue to build that sort of, not comradeship, but it's like, yeah, you coming to visit, and we like share, but that also means you come with responsibility, and almost like you're not going to one punitive this place as much as we do. If you're not that, then maybe you go someplace else. But I don't know, because I think Molokai, we said that sometimes the people who not catch it, we make big sign, we put them up front, yeah, like, because We try subtle, yeah, just like the 3 winds of Hina. The first one is very subtle, then you can catch cracks. So if we got a third Makani, you're done for, yeah. But maybe, I don't know, I just think of like effectiveness in and kind of playing off, it is education, because sometimes people mean well, just never know the ignorance, yeah. I go to Aotearoa pretty often, and their kaitiaki messaging from the moment you arrive is like so in your face and over as like as a visitor, like we are all stewards of this place. You're not a tourist. Like if you're here and so I was thinking, if you breathe our air, you drink our water, and you eat anything that was grown on Molokai, you are obligated to a standard of a code of conduct, because you are now powered and sponsored. Today, you are sponsored by Molokai, okay? That's my kupuna. And so I always message anybody that come to visit me, I'm like, okay, so now I get an expectation. When you go home, you can act how you like. That's not my kuleana, but when once you drink my air, you drink my water and you breathe our air, you answer to the kupuna and that authority. So there's something about that, like, that the messaging is, we're not telling you that this is Mauna Kea's expectation of anybody who comes to that space, and really allowing Mauna Kea to speak for itself. It's not us as a community or as an authority regulating everybody else. We're not like that as humans. But it's letting the Mauna be like this. What is the Mauna entitled to? Right. You know, does the Mauna get breaks from all of this activity? When does the Mauna rest? When does the Mauna get to dictate? That's where the Mauna sovereignty to indicate to us when is the appropriate time to do certain activities, even in ceremony. Like when we think we go out for solstice, we have for the changing of seasons, for makahiki, for certain celestial events, right? We rely on Mauna Kea as a space for us to collect information and for our kupuna to inform us. But even then, sometimes it's a no-go. Like, we gotta be humble for read and understand those signs and then actually discipline ourselves.
Mahalo. So one of the things that I've not heard in previous conversations is like having like some of the things you said is like it depends on a caring, responsible, enlightened community that's gonna stand the ground for the how you folks do for Molokai. Like you have to have the people who we act and model it and it right. And then help to reinforce. Okay.
I was just thinking about at our time, going to a place that you know is sacred. Kupuna would tell you what are the do's and the don'ts. You know, how to approach, what not to take, you know, where you walk. So I think that's really important too, yeah. I was just thinking of Ili Opai the first time I went there, because that was the sacrificial hay. So even more so. So I think knowing the traditional mo'olelo of places, yeah.
Mahalo. So recommendation, knowing we need to like really understand the mo'olelo of that particular place and the kupuna, right? That help to set the expectation.
The first time I went to Ili Opai, I was younger, so it was all of these other mo'olelo that we heard growing up that make you scared. And so because you're scared, you're going to act appropriate. You're not going to misbehave because you're instilled with all of these mo'olelo already, you know, from our kupuna, our parents, that even if it wasn't like directly relevant to Ili Opai, but knowing what type of heiau it is, you know, act up. You not even, you know. So those mo'olelo are very important.
Sorry. We need to continue to tell the next generation.
Next generation, mahalo. Yes.
Can I ask clarification or just to be sure? So would you say that astronomy as it with big telescope with infrastructure, okay, not the cultural practice of astronomy for culture or for voyaging for whatever. I refer to the infrastructure. Would you say that this is not compatible with the Kanawai?
I'm going to repeat the question. So the question for astronomy facilities that are existing, he wants to know if it can be compatible with to be culturally appropriate and become culturally appropriate. That's the question that he wanted to ask of you folks.
Go ahead, Mickey. I guess my question to you is, do you believe your actions are culturally compatible? If you've been around and you know us well enough, would you say that what you do is culturally compatible with Hawaiians? I don't know what you do specifically, but you, when sharing your ho'olauna, that you've been around for a while. And so, and you've been hearing the community, you're familiar with the first line of, the closest people of community, and then we're kind of like here, yeah, but you've been dealing with these people. Would you say that your work is culturally compatible?
Well, today the answer is no. Okay, let's be clear.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, of course. The question is, can we? If it's a matter of education, okay, it's a matter of educating astronomers like me, who unfortunately today are also mostly foreigners, okay, and there is a so how do you see the future? Do you see, can you envisage a future where we would practice astronomy according to the Kanawai, with and be culturally competent with, of course, more Kanaka as astronomers, obviously, because this is what is barely missing, unfortunately. But we can work on it together, okay? If we share the same vision for several generations in the future, because it will have to be multi-generational. So in the astronomy hui, we worked at some point using the 7-generation principle. So we can look at the past, and of course the past teaches us what we should not do. But we can still look at 7 generations in the future and see a vision and share the same vision, whereby we would be working together and be pono and be culturally competent.
Yeah, so Auntie, I went and asked him back if he thought his practice of astronomy was culturally compatible. Because he went and asked us, but you tell me what you do. I don't know what you do, yeah? And he basically said, not right now. And the honesty is good, but is there room for us to kuka to work together to build up understanding and to almost keep trying to find the things in common, and then until we find the non-negotiable thing, and either they're gonna have to adjust or we're gonna have to yield or something. But almost like we're saying, is it worth engaging in the conversation, or is it a hard no? Absolutely not. And but this, we talking about and the the work that is currently already there, not new. Yeah, so there already are approved activities ongoing, but almost how do we address them and their activity that's happening now?
It's what happens. So, what is happening? How many cars are going up there? I mean, how big is your building? You know, access, all of that is a concern.
So I'm not going to ask you to respond to that. So what I'm going to put on a recommendation is that there's a recommendation from community that current users would visibly, transparently, the level of activity that's taking place. For example, vehicle traffic as one activity. Yeah.
Reminding and pulling that history into the conversation, that how do we get better from here to build more transparency? Yeah? Okay.
Yes. More. Okay, we're going to move to the next question. This is the final question. And this question is regarding social justice issues that might still be unresolved. So I'm going to read for you. Act 255 requires MKSOA to include an operational statement. So what does the authority aspire to? To acknowledge and contextualize the unresolved social justice issues that underpin Mauna Kea. Could be all the different uses: conservation, preservation, public use of Mauna Kea. So what are some of the things that might be right under the surface that still need to be addressed?
These might have more. I'm going to back up so you're not.
Get over here, Luann. Get over here, Luann.
Right here. Right. Oh, Kalamayo. Kalamayo. Yep. Are there any unresolved issues that remain? If so, what are there? What are they?
How about the authority just adhere to the kanawai?
Authority. Follow the kanawai. Required to follow the kanawai. And report.
Consultation, and it came back that you guys should adhere to the kanawai because the kanawai come first. It encompasses the 8 realms of decision making by the Ahakiole. It encompasses all of that. It also answers his question. It's very simple. It's not complex.
Okay?
Yes. I'm just confused what you mean about social justice. Are you talking about affecting a certain community in Mauna Kea, close to Mauna Kea, the whole island, or the Hawaiians in general? Yeah.
Hawaii Pai'aina. So, I mean, that could be a social justice. Is Mauna Kea important for all people of Hawaii to love and care for? A social justice issue, or is it just a Hawaii island? Right?
Thank you.
Because I'm not talking about something that's going to be done in the future, but for now, like, for example, like in areas where you have a landfill, then the county is obligated to give a portion of the general funds to that community so they can do something they want to do, like a park or something. So is there anything being done to address the social justice right now financially?
We will record that as a question. Yeah, we will record that as a question. I wouldn't be able to respond to that, Kalamai. Yeah.
It's like It's like paying Waianae off to put all the landfills on Oahu in the
issues. Okay, what else? Anything else around? Yes.
So when you say the social justice issues that are still unresolved, so if you talk to all of them that went up there, and it's unresolved in their hearts and in their minds, because they were the kia'i up there, they were sleeping there, they were, cold. So I think the unresolved issues needs to be addressed to those of them who went there firsthand, because they experienced it, and we all saw and witnessed what they went through. Obviously, the arrest, and the law enforcement coming for them, and whatever happened. I think that is the unresolved issue with those individuals, those organized groups that went there. What is their mana'o on that? Because I think they're the frontline people that it impacted the most. We flew in, we bought the bottled waters, we took leis, we went and hugged our kupuna, but these were the kia'i, the frontline people. So how does that impact those individuals? That's who you need to be asking that question to. Thank you.
Mahalo. So recommendation that authority needs to meet with the frontline kia'i. Mahalo. And get their mana'o. Are the social justice issues that we might be concerned about only pertaining to Kanaka Maoli, or are there other social justice issues? I'll give you an example. So access for hunters. Yeah, they might be local. They might be outfitters, right? What about commercial use? Be able to Mauna Kea as well? Is that a social justice issue?
They make you money, right? Same like you putting all your rubbish in my backyard, and what I getting for that? Asbestos? I don't know. So I guess it could be one social equity and justice issue. I know I did my National Rifles Association's recertification in Mauna Kea. So the NRA was shooting them up inside there with a permit from DLNR. So I don't know what kind of stewardship was that. So that's the kinds of activities that go on. And then as far as hunters, I mean, they killing all of the sheep, and the hunters oppose that, but they don't have one way to respond. So yeah, they should have.
Okay. Look into issues with use with the hunting community. Anything else? We're gonna start to wind down. Anything else? Your generation, because don't let your generation make all the decisions for you folks. Please.
Well, I mean, kind of what everybody was pointing out. I mean, I do feel that what Auntie Loretta and Auntie Lori was saying about understanding our mo'olelo of Mauna Kea, and I mean, honestly, I probably only know the basic mo'olelo of Mauna Kea, just the TMT and everything that was going on. Most mo'olelo we don't hear of really in school. Right now I'm in a workshop that we have to choose an akua of Mauna Kea and research an akua of Mauna Kea, and that is hard. It's hard to find any research about any akua of Mauna Kea. Lilinoi is my akua, and that's it, yeah. And then Poliahu and Lilinoi are usually the akua that we all know of, and even them we have hard time researching any mo'olelo about them. So I think like Auntie Loretta was saying, having mo'olelo being taught to our youth so that they understand more about why Mauna Kea is so important to us and what that significance is to our kanaka. Yeah, I think that we need more mo'olelo, find research more mo'olelo, kupuna mo'olelo maybe.
So is there a recommendation that resources should be allocated for the production of curriculum that is that centered around mo'olelo and cultural resources and practice? Thank you for that recommendation.
I was taking some time to look up something and kalamai because I'm actually not very updated on it, but I feel like because it was shared with us, you know, knowing that we were going to be in this space, I probably should. I'm not very attuned to the whole situation, but it was brought up by one of our homestead leaders about the humu'ula, thing that was recently passed for a long-term. And humu'ula is, if I'm not mistaken, the access road, right, up to Mauna Kea. Humu'ula, H with the H, yeah. And so, kalamai, but I just sharing what we just kind of learning about and still have to look into, but I know that was a concern of some beneficiaries, DHHL beneficiaries of the long-term lease, and so I just want to bring that to this space. If anybody does know a little bit more about it, I heard there's some activity, and we're talking all about this kinds of stuff. So with felling trees, perhaps for timber. So something probably related to all of this stuff we're talking about, you know. I know, maybe I should have.
So is a recommendation also for the authority to talk specifically with point homesteaders, affected?
So I mean, it's homestead. It has a long history of issues.
So focus.
DHHL, yeah.
So have a focused conversation with DHHL and homesteaders. Yes. Okay, we're gonna wrap up here. Any final comments here, and then after, please stay because we have Q&A with the authority members. That way, if you have specific further questions or comments. Are there any other topics that you think we should be discussing in these talk story sessions? Any other?
Mahina, my first question about all of this authority stuff was, you guys never understand no. So that's the first thing I thought about is like, it's relentless. When everybody come out and we said no, and we draw a line in the sand, and we make statements, and we get arrested, it's like you think it's over, and then it just revives itself and it comes back with yeah, we're gonna be there again. So I don't know when enough is enough, and you know, I know you got to go back to Act 22, and that's why I said probably the way out for the authority is just to say that culturally appropriate way is to not violate the kanawai, and go from there. And that's the answer back to Act to the ledge.
Well stated. Any final comments before we transition into Q&A? I know. Okay. Okay. So we're going to five more minutes. Okay. Well, what else do you guys want to talk about? What are some of the other topics that you folks want to make sure that we address? Yes.
My takeaway from this whole hour of this is definitely education and orientation, permitting process, and enforcement. And those seems to be key to manage this, to take this back to the authority. The cultural appropriateness thing is really heavy. And I like the way Mikiala had approached that. And my takeaway personally is enforcement, educate. We have to educate everyone, not just us, the visitors, everybody who comes. Because, you know, like they said, when our kupunas told us, we knew what to do and what not to do. But it's not that sense for everybody else. So educate. Thank you.
I think we cannot have this discussion without bringing the military into it. So because PTA is right across the street, because when you brought up Humu'ula, that went kind of rattled my cage, because I've sat in several meetings at the sheep station in Humu'ula. And then while we're having meetings, these bombs are going off and shaking and rattling, literally shaking and rattling the windows of the sheep station. And I felt my life was threatened. I was like, is this cool? Like, you guys sit through this stuff all the time? For real? And so because of the proximity and what Auntie Paul brought up about the Kanawai, and what Mikiala brought up about noise pollution, and brother man over there was asking about, you know, when we talk about the flow, I like to know if your building on the top of Mauna Kea restricts the flow, the natural flow. My answer is yeah, it does. Does the landscape is, if I was a fisherman and I was in the ocean like I do out here on Molokai, I look for landscapes, and that's my biggest argument with our landfill, is that it created a different landscape. And so the landscape and the flow, the Kanawai, is not there anymore. You took that away. So that's my response to that question.
Where should resources be resources be spent? Education? Enforcement? What else? Education?
Enforcement, these heavy fines, not this $2,500 stuff. I mean, you really have to make an impact on them. The fines have to be sizable enough for them to think twice before they do it. That's just what I think. Revenue generator. Well, not that expensive.
Any other Molokai wisdom that you would like to share with the authority? For real. Yeah, true. Yes, true. Any other Molokai wisdom you would like to share with the authority? Okay.
Yes, and common sense. Yes. So if it's just common sense, which people sometimes get hard with common sense, but I think we know the value of Mauna Kea. I think we know the value of all of the telescopes on there right now. I have a good friend that works all of his life in one of the observatories. His job is to make sure that his radar going pick up the first person coming towards Hawaii. They already know, they know from far out what that person is, what is that aircraft, the numbers, is that, and then, so I know that part of the strategic part and the astronomy part. We know that that's all important in today's world. But there are other things that are more important to us to survive, just like how the geothermal talks are coming up. We cannot mess with our water resources. We cannot mess with Lake Waiau. We cannot mess with that kind of stuff, because we're just going to kill ourselves in the end. Yes. So we got to balance, and like you guys said, you got to balance. But I think we are really practical and common sense. So Of course, I don't want to see any new structures. And I don't know how many tons of concrete required to build. Mind-blowing desecration. And then the decommissioning is almost impossible. Is mind-boggling. The cost, actual decommissioning, taking tons and tons and tons and tons of concrete out of one mountain is not easy.
Would you like to record that as a part of the notes? No new structures on Mauna Kea?
Or okay, that's common sense.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
you are saying
I do not support any new structures, no. Yeah, yeah, not even decommissioning and then rebuilding on the same footprint. I don't support that either. You decommission, you're done. Yeah.
Question. It's just operational because I was reading here by July 2020, the authority is going to manage all the leases. So is it anything being passed to you guys right now?
So save that question for when we have the Q&A.
Okay. Well, another question here too.
Yeah, you should save it to the because I'm just facilitating
the conversation. Okay, so let's help me reset. So they're going to. Yeah. Yep, can. Kaulikes, if there's anything you want to add, she can add it for you. Okay, we're going to now transition to our final activity. And please help us take all the rest of the mea'ai home. Yes, please. You can take off. Yeah. Thank you. Only 4, guys. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Community members, this might be your favorite part of the evening. No pressure, authority members. So this is the opportunity for you folks to ask questions or share more comments with the authority members or to the authority members. The only thing that we ask is we're gonna have about 15 minutes for this part. We just ask that when you share your comment and or your question, just make sure we leave you enough time for all the folks to be able to, all be able to share, We're gonna share the time. So about 15 more minutes. And if anybody needs to leave, please get extra mea'ai in the back before you leave. Take for your ohana, okay? So, you guys know how to do this. You guys are experts. Okay?
Aloha. Mahalo again for coming to Molokai. Because we invested our time into adding our mana'o into this process, Me personally, I would like to see this through. I would like to see the ideas and mana'o that was shared in the groups be actualized and put forward. So what can we do to help you folks ensure that our mana'o and our feedback gets implemented or adopted or funded or established or whatever it is to see through these things?
That's fine. I'm remembering what something Eric Enos told me a long time ago. Anybody can plant a tree. Who's going to take care of it? So you planted many seeds tonight. Molokai never disappoints. This is rich, and it's up to us now to take care of them. And now you're not the only ones planting seeds. So next week we'll go Kauai, then we go Lapohoihoi, and we go Hilo and Kau and Waimea and Kona, and we've been to Maui and Ko'olau and Maili. So we got to somehow bring that garden together and kind of make something coherent out of it. But I'm not hearing so far a lot of conflict in the seeds that are getting planted, not like things that cannot live together. So our steps are, we exist under the largesse, the judicious wisdom of the legislature. They gave us a job to do, so we know that if you don't do your job, somebody might take your job away or decide you can't do it. So we're determined to get that job done. Standing up a new state agency in 5 years, given all the sunshine, and it's not the easiest thing, but we're not gonna make that an excuse. So get that job done, get all this codified into a management framework so that we're ready to act on July 1, 2028. So that puts a lot of pressure on our team and our staff. We were going at it today, feeling the pressure and saying, we gotta move faster, we gotta better, but you need to continue to be a part of the process. You need to take care of what you planted today. You need to look at what we do and see if your ideas are there, and if we miss something, call us on it, and then once it's codified and in place as a management plan, a regulatory regime, are we consistent? The group I heard, talked about decommissioning of telescopes. That's one of the betrayals of the past, is things were supposed to be decommissioned, they were not in a timely way. Under the last 2 years, we decommissioned 2, 1 more being proposed. And it's, as you say, get all your Opala off. And I'm from land management. That's a standard thing in leases. Return the property as you got it. And if we can make them return it even better, then that's the reciprocation that we talk about in Kihoihoi. Yep.
Anybody else? Questions?
So just one thing on the end product, after all of your hard work, just make sure that it's not just for the legislature, that the community is going to be able to use it to advance what the community wants to advance.
Yeah, that's our intent. I think I told you that we answer to the legislature in the sense that they fund us, but we don't really report to anyone. We're trying to be an autonomous decision-making body that does the right thing. That's all I can tell you. We're trying to do the right thing.
Let me add that earlier you saw the photos of the 12 authority members. So these are 2, and then there are 10 not here with us tonight. I am the executive director, so they are my 12 bosses, right? So all of us, including Bill Stormont on the staff, are accountable to our own genealogy first, which means our ancestors and the descendants that will follow. We're accountable to one another to make sure that we support the diversity in the group. But ultimately, we all are accountable to Mauna Kea. Right? And so the organizational chart of this agency is very different than what you would see ordinarily, right? That tops off at the governor. I mean, ultimately, that whole group is accountable to Mauna Kea, whether they know it tonight or not, okay? A year ago, when this board adopted the 4 kanawai as part of the strategic framework, that represented a substantial shift in the way land management, land planning, resource management, resource planning would come about, right? But when they did that, when they committed to that, it affected the way we wrote, the staff wrote the request for proposals about which planning firm should be developing our management plan. We got criticized because the first time out, we resulted in a applicant that we just feel could make the connection, okay? That we just debating about, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, okay? We went back to the drawing boards, reissued the RFP. SSFM, the major planning firm, engineering firm, was akamai enough to understand that they needed to augment their team with people who were deep in the community, deep in cultural practices, and had an understanding of the kanawai. As a result, you end up with people like Mehana Hind, you end up with people like Mehana Hind and Mahina Paishan. So each step of the way, committing to what is right has taken us to places that we haven't been to before. I gotta tell you, not everybody in Honolulu is crazy about the fact that we committed to the kanawai. But that's what Mauna Kea wants, is ultimately what we feel.
So I have a really practical question. This is an important issue for all of us. So I was wondering how we can track the progress of the, I'm not that familiar if you have a website, you'll be putting out information every so often, et cetera.
Yeah, we have, we have a website, and we have all of our meetings on the website. We have Antipool on that website. We're trying to collect as much information in one place to be very accessible. Like, it's kind of a trial and error. So now we've gotten way better in publicizing meetings, letting people know when we're going to meet. We meet as an authority every second Thursday of the month at 10 o'clock, and we live stream those meetings. We've collected those meetings, and they're on our website also. So we're trying to collect one repository where everybody can go and get that. But we hope to do a better job in terms of, getting on TV to let people know when our meetings are, when meetings in the community are. So I think we're getting better at it.
Hi, I know you folks work with the ledge, so as part of the authority, do you guys go through and see any resolutions that has been brought forward that concerns these issues? And I know you're laughing, so I'm hoping that you guys are able to read those resolutions. Obviously, I'm with the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs, and that's what we do. We write a lot of resolutions. So I just want to know if those were taken into consideration in any of your planning and decision-making and action plans. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have one bill that we are introducing through senators and a representative, and it's it covers 4 different areas. So we are on it's to make our operations more smooth, and it's not a substantive bill. It's not thing. There is a threat. A bill has been introduced this year and has been introduced for the last several years, which would basically try to dissolve us and send the management of Mauna Kea back to the University of Hawaii. Every year we end up fighting with that, yeah. So we keep track of the legislative things and we try to figure out what we need. We try to get a sunshine exemption. So for those of you that are not familiar with sunshine, no two of us can talk among ourselves. I cannot bring a third person here unless I have a publicly noticed meeting. And how do you form trust? How do you form and have people discuss things if you're not allowed to meet with? So in this meeting tonight, we have to send out a publicly noticed thing. So I can, but never go too far.
Okay, we have time for one or two more questions, and we can wrap it up.
So, so besides you guys, there's two other big topics that are in the Hawaiian community. So is that going to be like competition or work together, or is that, how is that going to play out, you think?
I think he's talking about Po'akuloa and then also the attack on Kamehameha schools. They're not formally connected, but we know that if something bad happens to the community because of Po'akuloa or Kamehameha schools, it affects how people look at us. Although we have not, there's no direct connection. So we're not totally working with them. I will tell you that Noinoi Wong Wilson is on this authority. He's also on the advisory committee to the governor on Po'akuloa. So we have a connection, a person that's connected. You know, this guy, he cut his veins, he bleeds blue, yeah? Maybe you too. So we have connections. We have people that are related and very familiar with the issues, but there's no formal, yeah. This guy did.
Those of us that weren't accepted at Kamehameha, too, trying to help out.
So so
Punahou doesn't count, but John.
I tried to tell him, it's been how many years? Give that up already, bro. Forget it. So anyway, to your question, we understand that they're related, but there is no formal tie between all of these issues. But we have people that cross these various issues that are involved with the board.
Can I just respond to that as well? It's a better way. I think if we are successful, we'll have better outcomes for all. And my hope is that we can get there. Well, when we started off, you know, way back with Keawanui and so forth, that was such a crazy idea. Then you look at places like Heiau, Waipa, Koupulehu, what you're doing in Keawanui, all around the state, we've suddenly realized, society suddenly realized it's actually a better way. Even Mayor Mo'okuapa at Heiau Fish Pond and say they've never seen something like this. So my hope is that we'll all see the success. We'll all enjoy the success, and maybe that'll show a better model than what we get when we have the threats and the takings and all that conflict. Because we're not going to allow people to just take. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be resistance, and that resistance could lead to contested cases, all kinds of stuff, arrests and all that kind of stuff that wastes a whole lot of energy and time and resources and gets nothing done, even for business. And so I think if we show a better way, then we have a chance to really set an example and be a model and not be a victim.
Okay. One more question. One final question.
Actually, this is not a question, more of an addition about how do you keep the community informed. And I think one of the things, to me, that's really important is, and we all know it, Pilina, that's how Kaho'olawe movement, it was, relationships that got built over time. So I think we have a really strong opportunity now because I don't know if it's on Molokai, but I know that our home associations and our civic clubs and the Ahahui have kind of come back alive. And I really think that those kind of small
organizations, and I'm hoping it's not that hard for you folks to just somehow get a simple information out to those folks, because that to me is really where the heart of communication lies. It's in community groups.
Mahalo for that recommendation. We have one final question from an online participant. Yes, the question. Did you want to comment?
No.
Okay.
We will do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, here's a question. Geothermal development on Mauna Kea. If a geothermal plant is built and there is a toxic release, blowout, like what happened in Puna, what will the authority do?
Sorry. I don't know. But we, again, put the Mauna and the health of the Mauna in the middle, right? That's our starting point. So we will act according to that framework. But I cannot tell you specifically what we would do.
I said, not gonna have geothermal, so we don't need to worry about the blowout.
Okay. Thank you, it is noted. Okay, so we have just a couple of announcements, and we have plenty more. Can we thank the Purdy Ohana for preparing the mea'ai for all of us? And also the OPIO that helped to support this meeting, set up, clean up, take notes, next generation, Maika Iloa. So we have a couple of announcements that are coming up. The first is we want you to know if you want to share more mana'o as ideas come up. All the questions that we asked of ourselves this evening are on this survey. Please encourage others who maybe wanted to attend, but they were busy with other things. We want them to share mana'o, so please. And it's also on the website, kuowakea.org, kuowakea.org. And then finally, we want to let you know that our next meeting is coming up on Kauai, which is next week, Tuesday. Next week, Tuesday, Kauai. So if you have Kauai ohana, please let them know. Please let them know. And then after Kauai, we have 5 workshops back-to-back on Hawaii Island. And we're going to complete this phase of conversations on Moko Keawe. So with that, thank you, Ohana and community members, for hosting us, allowing us to hear all of your mana'o, for teaching us, and for sharing your input. I'm going to ask John DeFries.
Mahina, that was excellent. I just want to make one acknowledgement. We're dealing with a full circle. You look at the authority members, 12 people. It's a very diverse group, right? You put them in a circle. You have an astronomer, you have an educator, a lawyer, right? Kia'i. Okay, so keeping the harmony in a circle that is that diverse to review, debate, deliberate all of the mana'o coming from Molokai, Maui, all of that, right, is a substantial challenge right within that room, okay? And so we encourage people in business to engage with people in the community to engage with the business sector, all of that, just so that everybody can learn more about one another, right? And the reason I'm saying this, I'll point out John Gabriel. John Gabriel, please raise your hand, John Gabriel. John Gabriel is the director of the Canada-France-Hawaii telescope, okay? Next month, there's a meeting 1 mile from his office. He could have just sat back in Waimea and waited for that to happen, but no, instead, he made the trip to Maui last night. He made this trip to Molokai as part of his learning curve to kind of grow, right? And so when I talk to him about the kanawai, right, the kanawai is like our ancestors for centuries watched this, right, observed. And then they finally determined at some point that this was the island's way of making itself healthy, that these cycles of nature were important. It's the way it breathes, it's the way it rests, it's the way it rejuvenates, rebirths, right? Okay, as I'm talking to him about this, I can tell he's resonating to it because when they're looking into the cosmos, what they're doing is the cycles of Vakea, right? Seeing it play out. So for him, these kinds of trips are really critical to establishing a whole different foundation of awareness, of sensitivity, of cross-cultural understanding. We're learning a lot from him. But I just want to point that out, John Gabriel, that we don't take this for granted. You could have stayed home, kicked back, and just wait till we got by your office. You didn't. You made the trip. And I just want to acknowledge that because that's part of the future we're trying to build as well. So thank you for being here. And Molokai, we're not going to tire of thanking you. So thank you.
I just wanted to tell Mahina I'm here because she called me. When I saw the Mauna Kea thing, I said, oh, not another Mauna Kea thing. Nothing ever comes of it, you know? You go to these long meetings, you talk, nothing ever comes of it. But she called me. And so I think if you want people to come to the meetings, that works. And then they'll tell other people, you know, and encourage them. I'm glad, in the end, I'm glad I came tonight. And I thought I wouldn't have much to say, but Walter's looking at me. I said a lot. So, but yeah, so thank you.